When Europeans came to this country and found it so lush and beautiful, there were very large herds of grazing ungulates naturally moving across the landscape. They wouldn't stay in a spot. You know, they would migrate, they would move. And behind them, it looked like they were just trampled it to death. But there was a synergistic relationship going on.
What we are essentially doing with this rotational grazing of livestock is that native grazer biomimicry, or short, bison biomimicry, right? And that's where these grasses evolved. And that's one of the great messages that we want to get across to people. It's like, these grasses literally need to be grazed to survive.
One of the principles of soil health is integrated livestock. And it seems like that's a principle that is often overlooked. It's really easy to incorporate whether you own cattle or not. I have 4 farms that I have cattle running on right now. I don't own a single cow.
The frequency of the rotation, kind of how we assess how often we're moving our animals into different paddocks. And the general rule of thumb is that you don't want to go any longer than 2 weeks because of the life cycle of the parasite load. So we like to generally have the right amount of impact with the right amount of animals and the size of the paddock so that we can rotate once a week.
What I would like to inject into regenerative agriculture more is the discussion of breaking up what is preventing water infiltration, effective water infiltration at a rain event. Why? Why is the water sheeting off during a rain event and not going in?
We had a lot of surface sealing that was happening in the soil where the cyanobacteria will actually form a protective layer, which happens after a good amount of erosion has occurred, and so it's kind of protecting what it has left. And that happens when there isn't enough ground cover.
And it's because of this microbiology dynamic that is something called quorum sensing, and therefore creating a hydrophobic layer from the cyanobacteria. And it's doing it to conserve water underneath that layer so that it can survive, but effectively it means that it's doing the same thing above it during a rain event. And that is what causes the initiation of desertification.
You know, sometimes you can look at South Texas brush and it's a wall, a very closed wall. So the challenge in these parts for grass production is because we can't see through it, we're not getting that rainfall, we're not getting that sunlight, just manipulating the brush. We've opened up not only the landscape, but it's put us on the other side of the curve, which is we're now realizing money for ourselves. Well, and a lot of the money that you realize sometimes is the money not spent, not necessarily the money that you make.
Our ranching style and the grasses that we have here and what's going to grow at the different times of year is a lot different than like Montana, right? But maintaining soil health is the same in both, because whether or not we're leaving standing forage for grazing later on, or whether or not they need to bale it for hay to feed later on, if you take care of your soil, you're going to have an abundance of forage to feed your animals. And keeping track of those conditions to keep building that soil health, man, it just saves you so much money.
You know, a lot of times we look at cattle as just takers. You know, they're taking grass, They do more than that. They give back so much more through their presence, through their hoof action, through their urine, through their fecal matter. They give so much more than what they take. We just haven't learned how to utilize that.
Livestock take off a lot of the plant material. They digest it, deposit it back on the ground as dung and urine, with 80% of the nutrients going right through.
You know, we've learned to pay attention to our properties better, not just the soil, but the grass, the animal behavior. They tell us a story every day. We just need to learn how to listen to it better, observe it better, and know what it's trying to tell us.
Well, the benefit would be that their soil health's going to improve, it's going to capture and store more water, they're going to grow significantly more forage biomass as well as diversity. With time, they're going to see much more favorable, desirable, high succession native plant species showing up. That is a very highest level of nutritional content for the livestock, as well as helping contribute to this wonderfully healthy, thriving microbial community in the soil. Now what we've learned is that when we can mimic that process by concentrating our livestock into one herd, moving them across, let's say, a rangeland with portable electric fencing, managing for short grazing periods and long recovery periods. When we mimic that, we see this explosion of beneficial response and the regeneration of the land.